to a very special Moonshine Throwdown podcast live stream. We've got some special guests with us tonight, joining Moff and Trace and myself. And if you heard the little tease that we put out earlier, we're going to do something kind of cool with all the talk surrounding, the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial strain that some of these G5 schools feel they're going to be under if football season doesn't start on time, and the conference realignment bug has popped up again, and people are talking and thinking, well, this might result in conferences being realigned to more geographically friendly, smaller type footprints, which I'm all for. We decided we were going to get some guys together and we're going to have a G5 draft, and it's going to work just like the NFL draft. These guys are going to be charged with building their best 10-team conference. At first, I thought we were going to do 12, but we're going to do 10. That way, some folks get left in the dark. So we'll see who gets left behind and who gets to come along for the ride. We're going to be using teams from the MAC, the Conference USA, the Mountain West, and the Sun Belt. The American is left out because they don't want anybody in their conference. They're doing just fine right now. The guys are going to be charged with building their most competitive, highest profile, yet fan-friendly, low-cost conference that also tries to preserve those historic rivalries and some new rivalries. So it's I think they all kind of get the gist. They want what's best for their school, but they just can't go picking the best schools out there because, well, you don't want to be traveling all the way from San Diego to Boca Raton, Florida, for example. That kind of defeats the purpose. Of course, all the guys are going to begin with their home school, so their first pick is kind of set for them. We've got, of course, Moff will get Western Kentucky. Trace will have Marshall, and that brings me to our two special guests. First, we've got Tanner Spearman. I've been following Tanner on Twitter for quite a few years, actually. First time I've ever met him, talked to him in person. He's I guess you would call it loyalist to Louisiana Tech, and now he's a Cowboy at Oklahoma State in grad school, I believe. Good to have Tanner here. And joining us is Miles, who runs the account at the UNT6 on Twitter. So he's a North Texas guy. We got a little bit of Western Division flavor. So welcome, guys, to the show. It's good to have you. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. As far as picks go, I sent you a draft order earlier. I just randomized it and did the opposite for the even round, so you guys know where you pick in what round. You're going to have 1 minute to make your pick, and if you don't do it within that minute, then whoever drafts behind you can just jump in there and take your team, kind of like the real deal draft. And then I'll give you a minute or so to talk about why you chose who you chose. One thing you probably noticed is, hey, why did he send us a draft order with 10 rounds in it if we're starting out with our own team and we're building a 10-team conference? Well, I threw a little curveball in there, and this is one that will lend itself to maybe it's some realities. So what you're going to do with one of those picks at some point throughout the draft, you're going to have to pick a media deal as well. I got 4 media deals in there, and you're going to have to decide when you want it. So jot these down if you've got a list of teams and all that stuff. So what you're going to be choosing from is a media deal that is just ESPN2. The second media deal will be ESPN Plus / ESPN3 and a game here and there on NFL Network like we have. The third media deal will be Stadium, Facebook, and the occasional game on CBS Sports. And the fourth media deal will be Fox Sports. So at some point, you're going to have to pick a media deal. That's why you've got 10 rounds. So what do you got? Welcome. Like I said, welcome to the show. I hope you guys are ready to do this. You guys have heard from me for about 4 minutes now. So if you're ready, let's get it going. You have seen the draft rounds already, and kicking things off, round 1 is going to go Miles, Moff, Trace, and Tanner. So let me get my clock started. Let me get my clock opened so these guys know they'll know when they can jump ahead of you, because believe me, they will, I'm sure. Okay. Miles, you are on the clock.
So we're picking our school or the media deal right here.
You do whenever you want. You've got North Texas starting out. So you use your pick on the media deal whenever you want to, or you can pick schools as far as you want to.
Let's see. I'll take UAB.
All right. UAB is off the board. Moff, you are on the clock.
We'll go with MTSU because I hate them and I like beating them.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Miles, I kind of jumped you there. Let's go back a minute there and if you want to explain to me why you went with UAB with your first overall pick.
I just think they're having more success in athletics, and they're getting newer facilities, and I just think that they'll be more competitive in all sports with the new coaches coming in. I'll take UAB.
Okay, sound reasoning. Trace, you are on the clock.
Yeah, UAB and middle's off the board.
Off the board.
Not that I would have picked him first anyways, but but all right, so this is not going to be the most geographically friendly pick, but since I'm kind of surprised they're still on the board at the third pick, I got to say Boise State.
I figured that's where you were going.
I mean, even though like they're so far away from Huntington, I mean, I just feel like that's a team that like every Group of 5 conference should want to have. I mean, they're like the end-all be-all as far as I'm concerned. I mean, no disrespect to, teams like UCF and other Group of 5 teams that have really come on strong, but Boise State's been a standard bearer for 20 years now. I mean, I feel like, and they're really good, obviously, in football every year. They never have a losing season in football. They're always usually good in basketball. They're just pretty sound in athletics in every aspect. So I think Boise State's a shoe-in for any conference, really.
Well, I got a feeling that Tanner's a little angry because I figured that was going to be his pick. Boise's now off the board. Tanner, you're on the clock.
No, I was just surprised he took them. No, I'm going to take Rice, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not the greatest success from them on the field, but Texas is just such a massive goldmine for recruiting. I feel like it's really important to have somebody in that state. Because I know for Tech, half their recruits are from Texas, so having somebody in that state to me is really important.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's the kind of things I want you guys to think about. I'm glad you're going that direction. All right, round 2 is opened, and that's going to be the reverse order. So Tanner, you're right back on the clock. So who do you got?
I'm trying to decide between two of them. Yeah, I'll take Southern Miss.
Okay.
Just like Moff was saying, I hate him and want to beat him.
That's it. Well, that's the rivalry in Dixie, right?
Yep.
Louisiana Tech and Southern Miss. See, that plays close to my heart. I got no problem with that. Trace, you're right back on the clock, and I know who you're taking. I'm just waiting to hear it.
I heard it last night. You know who I'm taking.
I do.
App State, baby, all day. App State.
App State. Trace is out of the gate with a super strong conference right now.
I just think that much like Boise, I think Appalachian State's one of the standard bearer mid-major college football programs. I mean, they're pretty sound, good at most athletic sports. It seems like. I mean, and it helps that they're more geographically friendly for Marshall because North Carolina is not that far from Huntington. I mean, they have a history playing each other and so forth. So I mean, it makes sense in that regard. And Marshall actually has a home and home with them in the next few years. So I mean, I feel like App State's another just shoe-in for any Group of 5 program or a conference.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a solid pick. Moff, you are on the clock.
I'm going to go with Troy. They have a good, passionate, and loyal football fan base. A lot of recruiting. We do a lot of recruiting down in that area, kind of that pipeline. I'd like to have them on the schedule with Troy there.
Good pick. Miles, you are rounding out the second round. You're on the clock. Who do you got?
Let's see. I will take Utah State.
Okay.
We used to play them. We used to play them a lot, and I think they're a good school to have in a conference. I mean, they're in Utah, but I think it's okay. I think they're a good school for all sports.
Yeah, they've had historically, well, I don't know about historically, but they've had relatively strong football for the last 5-6 years plus. I'm sure it plays geographically into where you're going to be there in Denton, Texas. It's not that far. So, I don't know how far anything is from Denton, Texas. That's a world away from me. So, but okay, good pick, Trace. Round 3 is underway and you are back on the clock.
Okay. Wait, who did you say, me?
Yeah, Trace.
Hit him out.
Huh?
Oh,
Round 3?
I thought we were doing snake. I thought we were snaking.
I randomized rounds 1, 3, 5, and 7, and the reverse rounds are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm on the clock.
you are on the clock.
All right, so I'm going back with a little bit of Marshall's old stomping grounds, a little bit going back to the MAC here. I'm picking Toledo.
Okay.
I think I really like. I mean, it's kind of hard to like them just because Marshall had such a good rivalry with them, constantly competing for championships with them. But Toledo's a solid football program. I mean, if you look at over the last 15, 20 years, they're pretty consistent winner of football. And then the basketball, I mean, I know they've been in the NCAA tournament several times that I can remember. I mean, Toledo's, I mean, and it's really close. I mean, for Huntington, West Virginia, driving, it's probably like, 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that. I mean, it can't be very far. It's an easy trip for fans. It makes a lot of sense geographically, and they have a good, pretty solid fan base, I think it seems like. And I just think they're good in pretty much everything, so I'm going with Toledo.
Okay. Is that the first team out of the MAC that is gone? Yes, it is. All right, Miles, you are on the clock in round 3.
Okay, let's see. I'll pick UTSA. Just a rivalry with us. I think they're starting to rise up in football with the new coach, and I think they're a good pick for us geographically.
Yeah, I do too. I think San Antonio is a huge city, and if they can just get some gasoline in that monster, they could really be formidable. Not a bad pick for North Texas and UTSA to be paired up together for sure. Tanner, you're on the clock in round 3.
All right. There's a small segment of the Tech fan base that won't like this pick, but I'm going to take ULL.
Okay.
When you look at Tech's history, they've played ULL in football more than any other school. I think the same is true for basketball. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's true for football. To me, it's the most logical rivalry. I know there's Southern Miss and everything, but with two schools in the state of Louisiana, I think it's a really important for these two schools to start playing again a little more often. They play every year in basketball and baseball anyway, but now we can bring it back football as well.
Yeah, I think if you've got the luxury to have 2 or more schools in the G5 level in the same state, you kind of want to keep them together. I mean, it's natural, and it's not something that, Kentucky or West Virginia has the luxury of having as far as, but Texas and Louisiana, they definitely have that luxury. Moff, you're on the clock in round 3.
Yeah, give me Georgia State. More kind of spreading that recruiting footprint, still keeping it where we usually find a lot of talent. Also, just another team that's kind of can be good across multiple sports. So hopefully, will help elevate the program, the conference as a whole.
You bring in a major metropolitan area in Atlanta. You guys played in a bowl game against one another a couple years ago, so there's a little bit of history there. Solid pick, because I know that the Toppers recruit Georgia and the South like super hardcore. They get a lot of talent out of the state of Georgia. Moff, right back into round 4, and you are leading off. You are on the clock.
Yeah, starting to get a little tougher.
Really?
It is.
You got half the East Division in Conference USA left available.
I don't want to play with it now.
There's a reason those teams are available.
Trying to get out of there, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stick mainly just for recruiting purposes. Pretty much my last 2 picks have been recruiting, and this one's the same. It's definitely not. I mean, I guess the elevation of their program has been better recently. But overall, still nobody shows up to their game. So give me FAU just so we can send our coaches out and watch some high school football.
Yeah, that's smart. Got to have a Florida tie for sure. Tanner, you're on the clock in round 4.
All right, well, I've got the Texas angle. I've got 2 of the 3 teams I really wanted. UAB got stolen from me. So I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and take a media deal, and I'm going to grab that ESPN too. Get that exposure.
Yeah, good. That's a good point, or good time to chime in, I guess, right now and just see where those cards fall. ESPN's a good deal. I mean, you got to think that's of the 4 that I listed, that's got to be the most highest profile that's going to pay the most. I can't get into too many details, but still, good time to get that. Miles, you're on the clock in round 4.
I'll take Arkansas State.
Good pick. I was
We've
waiting for
we've
that.
yeah, we've played them a lot in football back when we were in the Sun Belt, and we've gotten some good players from Arkansas. I think it would be a good little rivalry, and it makes sense geographically, I would say.
Yeah,
A
that's a
little bit,
good
yeah.
pick. They got a lot of success hiring coaches, so they're always kind of dangerous. It doesn't seem like they're going to be down for too terribly long. Trace, you are on the clock in round 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with another MAC team. Whenever I said the MAC the first time, I'm sure you probably thought that it was probably going to be Ohio. Well, now it's
Yeah.
Ohio. Now
Yeah.
it's Ohio. I mean, they just kind of have to be there. I mean, for Marshall, I mean, that's probably Marshall's best overall rivalry, I would say.
Bites your tongue, first of all.
Well, I mean, historically speaking, probably. I stand corrected there. But no, I mean, they have so much history with each other. I mean, they played like 70, 80 times or something. I don't know. They played a lot. And the schools are separated by an hour and a half distance. I mean, it's just in Ohio, it's just like the same kind of concept. I mean, they're pretty much good in multiple sports. Basketball had a Sweet 16 run a few years ago. Football's always 7, 8, 9 wins, that kind of stuff. So, and plus Marshall plays them, and that Marshall has a deep history with them. It's a great rivalry. So, got to go with the Bobcats.
Yeah, I kind of put you guys behind the 8 ball a little bit. Not so much Steven, because he got Middle Tennessee right out of the gate, so he secured their historic rival. And Tanner gets Southern Miss. He gets their historic rival. You got the budding rival that Miles was able to get with taking UTSA, and now poor Trace didn't get anybody until Ohio. That was really your only choice to preserve a rivalry. So we're on to round 5 now. Of course, this was a randomized round, and random.org spit out Tanner going with the first pick. So you are on the clock, Tanner, in round 5.
Well, it's getting a little harder with all the local schools getting taken away. Arkansas State was probably going to be my next one, and then that one got stolen. So thinking about who's relatively local, I think I'm going to go with Georgia Southern. Good history there. They haven't been as good recently as maybe historically, but they've got some potential there. Another good recruiting area in Georgia, so I think they'll be a good fit.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Historically strong as a 1AA school, still trying to find that groove consistently at the FBS level, but still, you can't go wrong with a fertile recruiting ground like Georgia. Trace, you are on the clock in round 5.
Okay, let me clarify. For those TV deals, we each just get one, right?
You just get one, yeah.
Once it's off the board, it's off the board.
It's off the board.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get a TV deal then, so I don't get out of it.
Okay.
I don't want to end up like Conference USA's current deal, but all right. So looking at them, the 3 that are left, it's I'm not going to pick the Facebook one. I'm sorry, I just can't. I've never been that big on that. It's convenient as all get out, but I've never been that big on it. ESPN 3, ESPN Plus on network. That's okay too. It's a slight improvement, but I'll just say Fox because I feel like you could do a little more with that. It could end up on regular Fox. It could end up on Fox Sports 1. It could end up on Fox Sports 2. All this kind of stuff. I feel like there's a little more options there, a little more national exposure. So, but the ESPN 2 deal is probably the best one for sure. But I'll just say the Fox Sports deal.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a good place to chime in on media. Look, I got to say that I don't really think that it's lucrative to have a Facebook deal, but boy, I love it because I've been able to watch a ton. I've been able to watch more Marshall and Western Kentucky games down here in Florida than I was able to watch when I was living in Huntington and Louisville and down in Bowling Green. So it's pretty great for a guy like me. Miles, you're on the clock in round 5.
Yeah, I'll go with the media. I'll go with the Stadium Facebook one.
Okay.
I think it's a good deal. It's more people can watch it, and you can also rewatch the game, which I like to do. But some people don't like it. Like a lot of the AAC schools, when we played them, they didn't like what we're on Facebook. But I think it's better than ESPN 3 and ESPN Plus. They're terrible.
Okay. Well, what you guys have done is now given Moff the luxury of waiting until the last round to get his media deal. So, but Moff, you're on the clock in round 5.
Yeah, he literally just stole Kristen Balboni right from me, just like that.
Oh no!
Just like that.
My 5 minutes in the fame there is gone.
Hey, it's my pinned tweet, man. So it's always up there for people who check out the profile. That's the pinned tweet on Moonshine.
Right. You are very, very correct. looking at who I want to go next. Man, I want to go Texas, but I don't want to go either one of the Texas schools left. I'm sorry. Give me Miami, Ohio.
Ooh.
Did not
Ooh.
see that.
Ooh.
We've played them a few times. It's not an unfamiliar school to us, and it's always been entertaining games when we have played. So let's keep that going.
I love
Still,
that. That
still
was a
my
straight.
historical rival.
That was a straight stab at Trace for you guys that may not be aware of that.
My bad.
That was awesome.
Ugh.
All right, so round 6 is or round 5 is completed. So we're halfway through. So what I want to tell you guys now is, if you feel like working some kind of trade along the way, work it amongst yourselves through DM or something, and just let me know, and we'll make those switches at the whenever you come up with it. Like if you guys have agreed upon it and it's your turn to pick in a particular round, just say, hold up, I have a trade, and tell me what it is, and then you can continue with your pick. But round 6 is upon us. Moff, you are back on the clock.
Yeah, another one. Give me Air Force. They've been known to be decent. I know it's not exactly the most. A lot of the schools in the Mountain West aren't the most travel friendly for us, but they can be a good football team.
Yeah, that's a solid program. I'm surprised they lasted till round 6, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Miles, you're on the clock in round 6.
All right. Let's see. A lot of teams off. I'll take Troy.
Troy is off the board, my man. Moff took him in round 2.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
Hey, we can work out. You don't want UAB that bad.
I know Rice is off the board. I'll take Texas State.
Okay. Any particular reason? I don't know much about Texas State, admittedly, so you have to educate me a little bit. I just know they're kind of bad.
Yeah, there's that fill-in team that I think you can put in for later.
They're a placeholder, so you can get a game plan together, I guess. I don't know. All right, Trace, you're on the clock in round 6.
Yeah, thinking about it in the recruiting sense, this is the only school left that really hits on Marshall's fertile recruiting ground. So I'm gonna say FIU.
Yeah,
that's the last like Florida team that I see available. And to be honest, FIU, I think they're a pretty growing, positive, direct kind of program. I mean, football wise, they've made some strides. Butch Davis done a great job there, and of course the fan support's pretty bad. It's not hard to see that, but I feel like eventually that'll end up growing to an extent. I don't know. And then they're in a big market area, TV just because they're in Florida, the Miami market or whatever it is. So, but primarily based on recruiting. Marshall loves playing in Florida for anything, so I got to say FIU.
Okay. That's a good pick. You got South Florida in the mix now. Kind of sucks for them that FIU and FAU couldn't remain together, but, who cares? Tanner, you're on the clock in round 6.
I've been staring at a map for the past few rounds trying to figure out who I'm going to take next. Getting slim pickings out here now. A few different ways I could go here. Yeah, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to take ULM. They're not great, but with all the other regional teams off the board, it's either that or, fly halfway across the country to play somebody that's, in some cases, probably not a whole lot better. So might as well just go ahead and take him. Well,
you've successfully secured the state of Louisiana, that's for sure. So that's kind of awesome. I didn't, I never know how this stuff's going to play out, but that's pretty cool. All right, round 7 was again a randomized round, and that puts Miles back on the clock with the first pick in the 7th round. Miles, you're on the clock.
All right. Hmm. Dang, it's tough. I'm not gonna go with. I'll go with Air Force.
Already been picked, my guy.
Oh, they've been. Oh, dang.
It's a no for me, dog.
you totally want Steven's teams, man.
Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
I'm telling you, he's all about that daggone UAB. So you give up UAB, you
I'll
might get
tell
one
you
of them
what.
teams.
I would
Is
do
Colorado
it.
State on the board?
Colorado State is on the board.
Yeah, I'll take Colorado State.
They are no longer on the board. All right.
They're in close vicinity. I just feel like they're a good rising football team. I don't know what else to say about them.
No, I mean, I think Colorado State's a good program. They're one of those fringe programs that I thought could go a little sooner because they've been kind of strong here relatively within a recent small time frame. And you get a pretty good kind of geographic area. At this point, you're going to start having to pick some outlying schools because you've eaten them all up. And I thought some of these Mountain West schools may go to you guys a lot sooner, actually, but I do realize they're far away. But, we'll see how it goes. Trace, you're on the clock for round 7.
Yeah, I've been really pondering this one, but I think I'm going to go with a Mountain West school here. I think I'm going to go with a team that's been really good in basketball the last few years, or at least a couple years they've been really good. I'm going to go with Nevada.
Okay.
I just feel like they're like really good in basketball, and let's be honest, like when more let's say this conference plays out, which it's not going to, but just hypothetically if it does, I mean, what they could do that Boise State and Nevada road trip for basketball real easy. I mean, they're pretty. I mean, I don't know how close they actually are, but I would just have to imagine they have to be in somewhat of the same vicinity. I mean, I think that would be good. And Nevada's usually pretty good in football. I don't know how they've been a little iffier in that lately, but I mean, I know they've had some history in football, so I'll go with Go Wolfpack there. I think that's a pretty solid program.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. What actually is close to Boise, Idaho? There's nothing really. They're an outlier no matter where they're at. So, unless they're playing Washington or Washington State or Oregon State, they're kind of an outlier up there. So, I guess you give them a little bit of a travel partner. Tanner, you're on the clock in round 7.
All right, I think I'm going to go after a basketball school as well and take New Mexico State.
Okay.
Tech has a little amount of history with them from the old WAC days. They weren't there for a long time, but they've got some really good basketball right now. So, if they can get that football going, that'd be a pretty good ad.
Yeah, this is where I fall short, and the guys, Trace and Moff can tell you that I'm not as knowledgeable about basketball and who's good, year in and year out. So this is where I'll get schooled a little bit, and I'm looking forward to this part in the podcast more than anything else because you guys can inform me a little bit more so than just, I can tell who's strong in football. Moff, you're on the clock in round 7.
Yeah, I'm going to take Coastal Carolina, again, kind of for recruiting purposes. I have actually been to that area. I've been to that campus. Not a great program, even though they do have some historical success. But they are growing. They're adding on to their facilities. More recruiting kind of hotbed for us. We branched over into South Carolina quite a bit. Hopefully their success will keep trending upward as they're growing their program. So give me CCU.
Well, what you've done is you've captured a destination city for many of the folks in that geographic area. They don't call it the Redneck Riviera for nothing. That's where folks from West Virginia and Kentucky, and that's where they go to vacation is Myrtle Beach, and Conway, South Carolina is right next door. And also what you've done that you may not have realized is you've paired a historically strong baseball school with FAU, another historically strong baseball school. So that's a pretty good move on a couple accounts.
Yeah.
All right. Round 8 is underway, and Moff, you are back on the clock.
Dang. All right. These MAC schools. Who we got over here? Thinking mainly football, but I'm also thinking basketball at the same time. Give me NIU just because they have had success. Hopefully they can be good again someday. We'll take them, and yeah, we'll take them.
I mean, hey, you played them a couple years ago. Was it? No, it was Ball State. You guys played a couple years
Ball
ago.
State.
You hadn't played Northern Illinois yet. They were all right. I mean, they had a good run there when Jordan Lynch was up there, and it all came to an abrupt end in 2014. I think it was when they faced the Herd in the Boca Raton Bowl and got beat around pretty bad.
That was the one.
But what are you going to do? You can't stay high forever. Everybody comes down. Tanner, you're on the clock in round number 8.
All right. Well, since I've taken New Mexico State, I might as well take. Are they still there? Yeah, New Mexico's still there, right?
I don't. Wait, one of these is.
Are
One of
they?
those is New Mexico State is. I'm sorry, man. They're actually an independent.
Yeah, I thought
I kind of figured they were just kind of thrown in.
Well, I mean, I guess you could take an independent. We didn't really talk about it, but I mean, you can't go pick a Notre Dame here in round number 9. But I guess if you guys want to put Liberty and UMass in the mix, that's fine. I don't think
Taking Liberty and anything.
I think you have to kind of lump in Army with Notre Dame. They don't really. I thought at some point they may want to join a conference, but I've since learned that they like to schedule games in areas where there are large military contingents and bases and things. So that's why they don't really belong to a conference, which was pretty smart. So if you're okay with that, I doubt anybody was jumping to get UMass or Liberty earlier in this thing. So we'll throw them in too. So that's fine. So you got New Mexico State. You want New Mexico now. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think the guys do either.
Oh,
all right. So where the heck are they at? They're in the Mountain West. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. All right. Trace, you're on the clock.
yeah, I'm gonna go with Old Dominion. I think that's another good area for Marshall, the Norfolk, Virginia area. They recruit that pretty hard. And ODU's got some really nice facilities and so forth. I mean, hey, and they sell out every football game, 20,118. They sell it out every game.
Wrong.
I mean, they sell it out every game. That's got to be pretty good fan support there.
Well,
but
that was
no,
the
I
old
mean,
stadium, and in the new 22,000 or whatever, 23,000, they don't get their 20,118 anymore.
Yeah, well, and ODU, I mean, they're pretty solid across the board in a lot of different sports. I mean, I know basketball's good, and they're always competitive. And I don't know, probably baseball, probably here and there. I don't know what all else, but I feel like I've seen their names up quite a bit on different sports and stuff. So I think that would be a beneficial, and it's not very far. It's not that far. It's travelable. If that's a word or not. But yeah, pretty good pick there, I think.
Yeah, not bad. Of course, I thought they would come off the board a little bit quicker from one of you guys just because they are kind of strong at basketball from time to time. I thought Steven may take them a little bit sooner, but whatevs. Round 8, Miles, you're on the clock to close out round number 8.
All right, so I'm guessing BYU would count as independent.
Yeah, they're one of those top tiers that's like Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think because they used to be in a conference and they chose to go independent. I think some of these other schools were just kind of kicked out and then they had to go independent, So yeah, I would say BYU's kind of closer to the Notre Dame aspect than they are to the Liberty aspect.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think I'll take Wyoming.
Okay.
They're a pretty good football. I think they'll be better in football this year, and they brought in a new coach for basketball, which I think he'll be doing good. So I just think Wyoming's a good fit, and geographically with Utah State and Colorado State too. I guess you could add North Texas too.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it's about. I mean, you want your fans to be able to go. You want the cost for your athletic department to not be as increased with super far travel. So it's a solid pick. It's a good program, decent proximity. All right, round 9 is underway. Tanner, you have the first pick on this randomized round, so you are on the clock.
Well, for this one, since I've gone into Mountain West territory, I might as well go all in at this point. And I don't know if you guys know this, but because you wouldn't think a school from Louisiana and a school from California could have a rivalry. But in the old WAC days, Louisiana Tech and Fresno State had a pretty strong rivalry. And 2 Bulldog teams, same conference. They've got good football. They've kind of started research lately. Okay at basketball, I guess. I don't really keep that up that much with them, but I think they'll be a strong addition. And they can go along with New Mexico State being in that sort of Western division.
Yeah, I think Fresno's a solid program too. They were good for a long, long time under, what was that coach? Pat Hill, wasn't that his name? And he was good. He was there forever. I mean, they have a good history of putting some high draft picks in the NFL, so it's a solid pick. Moff, you're on the clock in round number 9.
Yeah, give me Charlotte. I mean, a little bit recruiting, a little bit multi-sport success and possibility of being good. Yeah, no other reasons.
Yeah, no other way. Kind of scraping here, but that's okay. Miles, you're on the clock in round number 9. Pickings are getting a little slim now.
I was going to go with UTEP, but I don't think I will. I will. I'll go with UTEP.
Ooh,
I just
okay.
it's a little bold, but I mean it's better than South Alabama. I don't think they're.
Well, yeah, I mean, UTEP to me is like Boise. There's nothing close to El Paso, like nothing's close to Boise. So, but hey, if you want to keep a Texas school, that's cool. I mean, keep it in the same state at least. All right, Trace, you're on the clock in round number 9.
Yeah, this is going to tentatively be my last MAC team, I think. I could change my mind, but I'm going to go with Akron. Let's be honest, every conference needs a doormat. Akron would fit that billing quite well. 0-12. 0-12.
You already picked FIU.
FIU are a little better than Akron. Akron was 0-12 last year, so I mean, but I'll be honest though. I mean, Akron, like, they have had success in certain sports. I mean, basketball, they're usually pretty competitive. At least they have been. Football, they're very hit or miss, and mainly miss lately. But pretty much my reason is the same as it's been for all the other MAC teams. Most of it's geographically, friendly. I mean, it's such an easy job. I mean, the last time Marshall played at Akron, they probably had 75% of the crowd. So I mean, that just makes a lot of sense for travel and so forth. So I'll go with the old Zips.
Okay, I guess everybody needs a homecoming game. So
Right.
You got him.
Probably.
You are back on the clock, Trace, in round number 10 to close out your conference.
Oh my gosh. None of these teams fit left.
I don't know what to tell you, dog.
I know. I'm going to have to bite the bullet and go back to the MAC again. I'm sorry. I got to do it. I'm going to go with Kent State. They would not be a pick I would normally make, but they're close. I went to the Marshall-Kent State game a few years ago. It's not a bad drive. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's not a bad drive. I mean, they're like okay sometimes. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't exactly say they're a doormat, but they have the potential here and there to be okay. Certain things. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. That's the best I can come up with.
Well, I mean, at this point, you're just picking the closest proximity, it seems like, so your fans can travel to the games a little bit easier.
Hey,
All right.
that would also be the first ever conference game he's ever attended.
Away. That's right.
Oh, another shot.
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, gas is cheap. You don't drive to the away games.
It's not my fault. I'm not old enough to have gone to the MAC games though. Like if I would have been like the age I am now, like 20 years ago, I would have been at like 9 Marshall games a year.
Well, what's stopping you from going to Bowling Green? That was 2 years ago.
It's hard to find people to go with. That's what's stopping me.
Listen,
we're
going to get off topic here for a second, guys. It's a 5-hour drive, and you're driving to where you know people, so you aren't going alone. You're just driving alone. But once you get there,
tell him what kind of host I am.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, and this goes for any of you guys. If you ever go to a game at Western Kentucky, football or basketball, you will have a lot of fun because Steven is a great host. The folks that you will meet down there are so hospitable and so great. They will welcome you right in. It doesn't matter if you're wearing Louisiana Tech gear or North Texas gear. They just want to have a good time. They're a lot like Marshall fans in the sense that you'll be buddies before the game. You will be bitter enemies during the game and be good buddies after the game. And that's kind of what it's all about, really. Miles, you're on the clock in round 10. Close them out strong. You've got several pretty decent teams to pick from. It looks like you just have to weigh out proximity for fans versus quality of program.
I'm guessing Air Force is off on the
Yep.
board.
No,
Dog.
Air Force is gone. You really like Steven's picks, man. You, all
Hey,
three-
Air Force? Oh my
Hey, I'll
gosh.
trade you a conference basketball championship
Ah,
for one
shut
of those
up,
three.
man.
he really wants UAB, and you,
Straight down 65, man. That was my pick.
I guess I'll go with. Oh wow, this is tough. I guess I'll go with UNLV.
okay.
It's a pretty destination.
Yeah. How
Destination
can you
spot
go
for
wrong with
fans.
Vegas, dude? How can you go wrong with closing out with Las Vegas? Quality pick, my man. Quality pick.
And he's
But
actually picking all the schools that used to be really good at basketball.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'm old enough to know when to have watched, them win the national title way back when. I remember Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and those guys tearing it up. So yeah, that was a while ago, but that's a good pick. I don't sleep on UNLV. I'd go to Vegas to watch a football game.
Yeah, I would too.
All right, Moff, I don't know that you get to. I think your pick is done for you. You get the ESPN Plus 3/NFL Network media deal.
$4.99 a month, baby, for ESPN Plus. Give it to me.
$4.99 a month. I got it at my house. Tanner, you get the luxury of having the last pick in this draft, and I guess you get what you want to call your pick of the litter.
The Mr. Irrelevant of the draft, huh?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Not you, but the team is, I guess.
Right.
Well, they're not irrelevant because they get included. It's whoever doesn't get left that they're all irrelevant.
Well, this is
Whoever
going to be pretty relevant, Mr. Irrelevant, because I'm going to take San Diego State.
good
Like
pick.
it.
They had a good
I
travel
like
rival. Just bolster in that, the strength of the conference in football. I think there'll be a great way to finish this thing up.
Yeah.
Well, they dropped that far.
Again, I thought they would go a little bit sooner. Weren't they like super awesome in basketball a couple years ago or something like that? Weren't they?
Actually, they were pretty good this year. They weren't like
This year, yeah.
didn't they go undefeated or almost undefeated?
That's what I'm saying.
Almost.
I thought it was they were ranked like way up there, either within the last few years. So yeah,
They were like 20-something and 0 until they lost the first game.
and actually good football over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 years. So yeah, that's a solid pick. So before we get into anything else, I mean, this is over a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. So that's good. It gives us a little bit of time to, if you guys, we'll give you a few minutes to try to see if you want to trade some of your teams around, whatever you want to come up with. But I'm going to list all the teams that did not make the cut. So in our opinion, our humble opinion, this is the outliers of the G5. They will not be joining us. And there was the only team or the only conference to have all of its teams picked was the Conference USA. I don't know if that's a, coincidence that we have 4 Conference USA guys picking, but it's just the only conference that had all of its teams taken. Not making the cut out of the MAC, Ball State, Bowling Green, Buffalo, and the directional Michigans. None of them. Central, Eastern, and Western Michigan all staying at home. That's a nice little 6-team conference for them. I'm sure they could pick up James Madison and maybe North Dakota State, South Dakota State, whatever, and have a decent little conference on their own. Like I said, Conference USA gets wiped out. The Mountain West, no surprise here that Hawaii gets left off because even though it's awesome, it's forever and a day away. And San Diego State is staying at home. Out of the Sun Belt,
That's what I just took.
what's that?
San Diego
Jose
State,
State.
that's what I just took.
San Jose State.
San Jose. got it.
Yeah.
And the lone team out of the Sun Belt that's going to stay at home is South Alabama. So bummer to you guys. You did
USA.
not make the cut. So if you want to make the new Conference USA and really span the continent, you get from Hawaii all the way to South Alabama and all the way up to Buffalo, New York. Whew, that is not some fan-friendly travel. I do not have a master list of all of your picks. I just have a round-by-round kind of deal here. So is there anybody you kind of want to make a play for? We'll start like the order you guys are on my – oh, I know what I was going to do before you make trades. Of all those teams I just mentioned that did not get picked, if there's somebody that you have that you want to trade from your current picks and take somebody that's still left, you may do that. And I randomized the trade round So if you are so inclined, Trace, you have the first pick to trade one of your teams for somebody that's left. You don't have to. You can stand pat.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I traded Kent State or Akron for Bowling Green, that's not really accomplishing much. I feel like that's just a lateral move, and I don't want to take the directional Michigans. They're kind of far out of the way. Buffalo's far out of the way. Ball State's pretty far out of the way. Eastern Michigan. I mean, Hawaii would be awesome, but it's too far. So,
but everybody tries to dodge the Hawaii Bowl every year anyway. Why do you want to have to go there every single year?
yeah. So I'm pretty content with my list. Even though if it was up to me, I would not have had to pick Kent State, but I'll stick with Kent.
I guess the only plus to playing Hawaii is what you get 2 bye weeks. Is that how that goes? Because you have to play week 0, and
yeah, probably.
All right, so Miles, you're number 2 pick in the trade round. If you want to drop somebody you currently picked and trade them for somebody that's left, you can do that, or you can stand pat.
I think I'll pass. I don't have anybody else to trade.
All right, he's standing pat. Tanner, you are ahead the 3rd pick in the trade round if you wanted to trade someone out.
Who were the Mountain West teams that were left?
Hawaii and San Jose State are left.
No, I was thinking maybe I could drop Georgia Southern just because they're kind of a geographic outlier. But if those are the choices, I'll take the good football.
Okay. Understand. Steven he obviously doesn't want to trade anybody. He has left the damn stream. He's muted himself. So now I guess we can get around to, like, if you guys want to try to trade around a team or two to improve your current conference standing. What we'll do to keep this from being just utter chaos is I'll ask you if there's somebody you want, and then I'll tell you who has that team, and you can see if you can trade. So, Miles, is there a team that you want that you didn't get? And I'll tell you who picked them, and you can see if they want to trade and who they will trade for.
Let's see.
Again, you don't have to, but if there's someone you really wanted.
I don't think so. I think I'm set.
Okay, he's happy with who he's got. Tanner, is there someone you didn't get that you would like to have gotten?
There's a couple. I'll be honest, I wanted UAB.
How is UAB so sought after? What is this? First overall pick, 2 other guys on the panel won him. What the heck is going on? So Miles obviously has UAB, and who else were you after? I'll tell you. Miles has UAB. Who else were you interested in?
I mean, that's probably the main one. The other one I was thinking was Arkansas State, who he also has.
Okay.
So.
Well, that was his first overall pick and his pick in round 4. So if you guys want to try to work something, that's fine. But I don't know. Tanner's first overall pick was Rice. Miles, and his second round pick was Southern Miss. 3rd was Louisiana, and 4th was you can't get rid of your media deal. You got the sweet money media deal.
Yeah.
So if you want to get rid of UAB for somebody that he has, you can try to do that. Steven, is there somebody that you wanted that you did not get? UAB. Miles, you've seriously got your pick of the litter. I mean, you give up UAB and you can get somebody of value. Sorry, UAB fans.
It's literally a straight shot down 65. It's like 3 hours driving, 3.5 hours driving.
I mean, I'm not trying to crap on UAB. But what I'm saying is, I feel like they were not the number 1 overall pick. I'm just throwing that out there.
There's just they've got, for me, it's just the rivalries between Tech and UAB, and even Southern Miss and UAB. That's kind of what I was after. But
yeah, I get it. I mean, I get it. I get it. Trace, is there anybody that you didn't? I mean, you got a pretty good conference here. Is there anybody you didn't get that you would have liked to have gotten?
Yeah, thinking about it, looking at the teams I crossed out that everybody took, there's really only one team that I think I would, but I actually was going to pick, but they got picked, and that's Georgia Southern. That's really the only team that I would have picked. And I'm not sure if I have any assets that are reasonable that I would trade, but maybe that can be worked out. But I think I would kind of like Georgia Southern, honestly.
Well, that was you, Tanner, right? You have Georgia Southern? Okay. So you're dealing with a Midwestern type geographic region here. So I mean, what do you? He took Georgia State in, or I'm sorry, Georgia Southern in the what round was that?
Fifth round.
Fifth round. Yeah, that's when Trace took you took your media deal. So before that, it would have been Ohio University for Trace, Toledo, and of course App State and Boise. But
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I can't trade any of the MAC teams for him because it just wouldn't fit there. But I mean, Nevada possibly. I wouldn't be that upset to trade Nevada. Definitely got to keep Boise. So that's really the only worth dime, honestly, to trade.
well, so basically, you're going to have to sell the deal of Nevada for Georgia Southern. That's what it is. So.
Hey, yeah. Well, if I had a little time to prep, I'm sure I could sell it pretty well. But
I don't know. I mean, that's a gut reaction. It's like
on the
either I
fly,
want to go to
can't.
Nevada or I want to go to Georgia. So, I mean, you posed the question: Is Georgia Southern for Nevada a go?
Hey, they had Colin Kaepernick.
That was a lifetime ago.
That's the best I got.
I don't know. I mean, Tanner, is that a trade you would be willing to do? Nevada for Georgia Southern, straight up.
Man, I have to think about that one.
Well, in the meantime, while you're thinking, is there any team, Miles, that you would like for UAB? Because that seems to be the one everyone wants. I mean, that you're in a pretty good leverage situation here.
I would say Boise, but I don't.
Trace doesn't want UAB.
Boise.
One guy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Trace is the only guy. Steven and Tanner both want UAB, and they have good assets, but you have leverage here. So if there's somebody you want, you have the opportunity to get that one team that's not Boise to bring them to your conference.
The next one was going to be App State, but he also has it too.
Trace, he doesn't care about UAB, baby.
I'm not gonna be,
Hey, I mean, I might have drafted them in the mid round somewhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry guys, neither one of you are getting UAB. He's sticking with. I'm still flabbergasted. I am flabbergasted that UAB was the first overall pick in the G5 draft. A team that had no football team 2-3 years ago is the number one over. Talk about a glow up. I mean, Jiminy Christmas.
I thought for sure he was going to take UTSA, and then he took UAB, and I was like, wow, okay.
Well, I mean, both of you guys. I thought Tanner and Miles both. Your first pick would have been Boise, without a doubt, because that is the cream team on that side of the country. So it's kind of amazing. But
yeah, if we hadn't have started with our own schools, I probably would have taken them first. But
yeah,
I was thinking geography early on, so I was trying to stay local. That's why I didn't.
Well, I just figured it would be easier for everyone to start with their own school. You don't have to draft them, and then you can just build your conference. So it would have been funny because I don't think anybody would have taken Marshall in the first round per se. So it would have been funny for Trace to maybe drafted Western in the first round, and if he'd have gotten back-to-back picks or something like that before Steven could have picked, he would have been able to have Marshall and Western, and Steven would have been stuck with Middle Tennessee alone. All right,
you've seen my cup holder. It's all good.
I have seen it. Yes, it's a fun hatred. It does run deep, but hey, the man drinks out of a Middle Tennessee cup. What can you in a Western Kentucky to out Jeep? What are you going to do?
Middle Tennessee is great at social distancing at football games. So.
Yeah, they specialize in the gray out. They do great at that.
You can sit anywhere you want when you go to one of their games. Calm down.
They bleacher out like nobody's business. I mean, they are the cornerstone of attendance records in the Conference USA. All right, so I guess our only problem is, have you come to a conclusion? Is there going to be a Georgia Southern for a Nevada deal that goes down?
It won't upset me either way, but I thought I'd throw the pitch out there.
Nevada was another one of those schools Tech fans loved to hate back in the day. For whatever reason, I don't get it, but some people did. Because Georgia Southern doesn't, like, when I took them, I thought they'd be easily fitting geographically. but I got the later rounds and I kept having to take all these Western schools. So they're actually surprisingly kind of better on an island. All right, I'll give you Southern for Nevada.
Wow. Okay.
My football brain is saying no, but
Yeah.
my looking at a map is saying yes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the whole point of this whole exercise anyway, so screw it.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. It's easy just to go out and pick the best school available, but if you're traveling from California to Florida, you're putting your home school right back in the problem that they may be in right now, which is needing to shrink their footprint.
Yeah, like having a school in Georgia and a school in California which is what I have now, doesn't really solve the problem we can't set out to fix. So
right. So now you don't go past Louisiana, right? You don't go any farther east than Louisiana, right?
I got Southern Miss, and that's as far east.
Oh, okay. So that's still kind of, I mean, that's worth the drive. If you're a Tech fan, that's worth the drive. But yeah, you're not stretched out too far. So Southern Miss is your outlier. Poor Southern Miss. As the rival of that, you gotta really hate that they're going to spend extra money to go everywhere. All right,
yeah, they're not that much further away from us or from ULM, or even ULL, so it won't be that bad.
So you guys know who you picked. Like I said, I don't have a master list yet. So let's talk about how it all panned out for you, Miles. Run down who you ended up with and talk about how you feel that you did. Did you do your fans and the fans of your newly formed conference justice? Are they going to be able to travel to games? Do you feel good about the media deal that you ended up with? How do you think the draft turned out for you?
I thought it turned out pretty well. I mean, it's still pretty far distance from, we're going from Birmingham to Las Vegas. But I think overall for travel for us, we're used to traveling back in the Sun Belt and back in the early Sun Belt days. We would travel from, Denton to Utah and all those places. I think geographically, I think we did fine. And, I had Texas State, Arkansas State, UTSA, UTEP, and UAB. Those are all schools that I'll travel to or drive to. And then Utah State, Wyoming, Colorado State, and UNLV.
Okay. So of those, if you've got to tell me, who do you think is the crown jewel of your conference? Who is this conference built around, so to speak? Who are you going to hang your hat on?
That's tough. I think it's between Utah State and UAB.
Okay.
And if I'm not counting North Texas,
you can count North Texas. They're in the conference too.
Yeah. I would say UAB for right now.
Okay.
I just feel like they're that team that is the overall best in all the sports. Not the best of all, but I think they're solid all around in most sports.
Okay, probably the best overall program. Now, if you are the AD at North Texas or the commissioner of this new conference and you have to present this to your fans, do you think the majority of those folks would go, hey, this is an upgrade from our current situation in Conference USA?
I think they would.
Okay.
A lot of our fans on our board and people that I've talked to, they don't really like what they're doing in the conference, and they like to play the old teams that we have played in the past. And I think that this newer sold, I would think, a lot more. And because I've heard a lot of people wanting to go to the Mountain West for us, for UNT, and I don't. That's still a lot farther than a lot of the other schools. So I think they'll buy it. I would hope.
Yeah. All right, Tanner. How do you feel about the way the draft turned out for you? Same kind of deal. Who do you think is your, Tech included? Who is your crowning school? Your two crowning schools? Who's this conference built around? And kind of the same question. If you're the commissioner of this conference, do you think that the fans of these schools that you have built think it's an upgrade over Tech's current situation and the current situation of these schools?
Well, I'll tell you, I did not expect to be going out west as much as I ended up doing, but that just by necessity that happened. As far as crown jewel, I mean, in the eastern portions, I think Tech, Southern Miss, and ULL can all be strong, and out west, I think Fresno and San Diego can both be strong. So I think there's some good depth, and I think there'll be some good battles in the conference. I think as far as is it an upgrade, I think ESPN2 was an obvious upgrade.
Yep.
Everyone's going to love that. Now with all these Western schools and these like mid-South schools, Southern Miss fans will probably riot in the streets if they have to go to San Diego and Fresno, but Tech fans, I mean, they did it before with the WAC, so it's not that new. I don't know if they loved it necessarily, but they can, at the very least, you get some old rivalries back like Fresno State. We never were in the conference with San Diego State, but they're as good as they are at both football and basketball. I think that we can sell that to fans. So, you know, it's I think there are ways that it is an upgrade. I think in some ways you could argue it's maybe not as much of an upgrade, but honestly, when you're in like Louisiana or around that area, is going to San Diego that much worse than going to Norfolk?
Right.
Or travel. So, and California's nice.
Right.
So I think there are parts of this that I think are an obvious upgrade. Some parts of it may need to be sold to the fans a little more, but I think as long as the teams are playing to their potential and being strong, and you're getting all this exposure on national television, I think they'll learn to like it.
Yeah. The one thing I'm going to ask you guys to do, or I'm going to go ahead and do that now. We're not going to do this on the air, but when we're done, so that I can post the results of this draft the way that you intended it to be, I want you, when we go off the air, just take a few minutes and line these out into, say, 2 5-team divisions so that you can make it easier to sell that to your fans. Like, well, you don't have to go to San Diego State every single year. You're basically only going to fly there once every 4 years to play football or something like that, So we'll do that. So when I tweet out the results of this, it may make a little bit more sense than what we can cover here. We can talk about that forever. Stephen, how did the draft turn out for you? Who are your crowning achievement schools aside from Western or in addition to Western? And do you think it's an upgrade over the current situation that Western's in right now?
I mean, I think the crown jewel is obviously Western. I mean, it's a pretty, I don't want to say vanilla conference, but there's nobody that really jumps off the page at you. It's almost very similar to Conference USA. I don't think there's a true lead dog there in any sport. I don't know. There's not really anybody that jumps off the page, across the board at me, kind of where I picked and what I had left and was trying to accomplish, recruiting wise, in the early rounds, big names were plucked off. So I mean, honestly, it's kind of the headliner as it should be.
I mean, do you think that the fans would be happier with the teams that you assembled versus being in Conference USA?
I think it's pretty similar. We shed some of the ones that I don't really care about. Like you mentioned, thinking I would take ODU. While I would like to go to ODU, it's not really a travel-friendly destination from Bowling Green. Got rid of one of the Florida schools. I mean, it's about the same as far as, the respectability of the conference. I mean, it's almost kind of the same. It's almost just a handoff from where we are now to where we would be, plus the same media deal, and no Kristen Calboni. So it is.
Man, maybe Stadium will fire her and she'll come to work for ESPN Plus, and you'll get that next interview. Who knows? Trace, I got to think that you're pretty pumped with the way this draft turned out for you, at least in the beginning. So same thing. How did it turn out for you in your opinion? Who's these crowning schools, and will the fans be happier with your draft versus the Conference USA layout right now?
Well, to answer that last one, undoubtedly, I think the Marshall fans will be much happier with this conference. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of teams in Conference USA that Marshall fans just don't respect for right or for wrong. And it's kind of taken some of these teams beating Marshall for them to start actually realizing that, okay, these aren't as bad as we think they are. But even at that, I mean, when you have Boise State in a conference and Appalachian State, I mean, those are like two of the, if you were ranking like all-time greatest group of 5 caliber football programs, they would have to be there. I mean, Boise State would be number 1 for me. So, I mean, they check off huge boxes. Yeah, I mean, as far as location-wise, Boise's kind of an outlier for this whole conference, but I mean, I think it's completely worth it. I don't care what it is. I don't care what conference it is, what the situation is. I think anybody would like to go play there, and it's such a unique venue, playing on the blue turf and everything. And out there all the way far, all the way out in Idaho. And when Marshall played there last year, when that game first came on and I saw them running on the field, I said, this is kind of surreal to see this happen, because it's like you always watch games on that field and watch teams play boys, but it's never your team. So it makes it really cool. But looking at some of the other kind of boxes here that kind of fit on what I was trying to do, there were some really good places for recruiting. I mean, had to get FIU in there just for the recruiting purposes mainly. ODU, the Virginia area, Marshall recruits that heavily. North Carolina, Georgia, etc., Ohio. I mean, there's some good places there for recruiting. There's a lot of places geographically friendly. I tried to put as many quality MAC teams as I could. I think I got maybe the most quality MAC teams: Toledo, Ohio U. Now Akron and Kent, not exactly quality, but they have potential to, like, every few years maybe they'll sneak up and be good. So maybe that might work out. There's a couple brand names. I think there's some good brand names in there. I mean, Boise State's a huge brand name for mid-major college athletics. Appalachian State, same thing. I like that. And there's another thing I was thinking about. There's some really strong fan bases in this conference too. I feel like that's another kind of underrated aspect, because Conference USA, we know, is kind of fickle with fan support at times, but Boise State's got a really good fan base. Appalachian State, Toledo, they got a pretty solid one. Georgia Southern, they got some pretty rabid fans. I mean, it might not be the biggest fan base, but they got a really good fan base, I think. Kind of tight-knit group. Marshall, of course. I mean, I really think that overall it's a pretty good conference. There are a couple bottom dwellers in there, like it always has to be. But other than like Kent State or something, I'm pretty happy with all my picks.
Yeah, I think you did really well. I think some picks fell to you that I didn't think were going to be there, especially early on. But I want to say one thing, that you guys did a phenomenal job of preserving rivalries. That's close to my heart. And you managed to save rivalries, Louisiana Tech versus Southern Miss. I'm not sure if ULL and ULM is a rivalry. I'm sure it has to be. But if so, that one was saved. North Texas and UTSA was saved. I think you also picked UTEP, didn't you, Miles? Yeah, so you got, I think UTSA and UTEP have a little one going on, or trying to build one. And, of course, Stephen preserved Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee, and Trace preserved Marshall and Ohio University. And I'm sure, without in-depth knowledge, probably Toledo and someone from the MAC. I don't know, maybe Akron. I don't know who their rival is. But this is a really good job. So we're going to close out of here pretty soon. If you guys have listened to the podcast before, Tanner, Miles, if you have, you haven't, what we always do at the end of the podcast is we give you guys a moment or so to give some final thoughts. I want to say before you get to talking that it's been awesome having you on here. You're welcome back on the show anytime you want to. Don't be afraid to hit me on the DMs and say, hey, man, Louisiana Tech's coming up playing, Western or Marshall. You guys, I'd like to come on and talk about that, or same with North Texas. You're welcome back here. We had a good time doing this. So if you've got some final thoughts, anything you want to say, Miles, we'll start with you, and then we'll move it on down the line. So if you got anything, lay it on me, brother.
I'm glad I got to do this. Not a lot of people like me get to do this. I'm only 16. So it was fun doing this for sure. And I have a pretty good conference, I would say.
Yeah, I think you have a pretty good conference too. You are the only one that, unless you're a genius and I don't know about it, you're the only one that hasn't graduated from college yet. Unless you're this Einstein that I don't know, and you're actually like a third-year med student at 16. But I'm guessing that you want to go to North Texas, so that's pretty cool. I told you as we were leading into this that age doesn't matter to us. All we really care about on this podcast is if you can debate without getting petty, and you can talk intelligently about your ideas and concepts, and you were able to do that. So I wouldn't worry about the fact that you're 16, my man. You did a fine job on this live stream. Tanner, if you have anything to say, I'd love to hear it. Lay it on me.
Yeah, like I said, it was really fun to do this. Glad you guys invited me. Thank you for that. Like I said before, this draft did not go the way I expected it to, but that's the fun in it. I just keep staring at this East Division that I've got: Louisiana Tech, Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Monroe, Southern Miss, and Rice. those are some strong connections. Even not every single matchup's a rivalry, but they could quickly become one. So especially if like Rice and ULM start getting better. So I think that could be a very compelling division. And I mean, we've got rivalries all over the page, like you guys have said. I love rivalries too, so I'm glad we could get things like Marshall and Ohio. I'm glad to see those two. I would be glad to see those two in a conference. So, yeah, this was fun. Really interesting. Obviously, not how it would play out in real life, but yeah, that wasn't the point. And I just wanted to mention one thing. We were talking about Boise State and how prestigious their seem to be as a Group of 5 team. You mentioned at the beginning that I go to OSU now. Just to put into perspective how they are seen, OSU will do like a bye game or even a 2-for-1 with G5 schools like they did South Alabama, Central Michigan. True home and home with Boise State. And Boise State on the schedule has been treated as the Power 5 team of the year.
Wow.
So not this year, but last year, Boise State was the prestigious non-conference game of the year for OSU. So a Big 12 school is treating Boise State like the big team of the year. So that's what Boise State is. That's where they've gotten to. I would like to point out that OSU is 1-0 against Boise State. OU is 0-1. Just throwing it out there. We had some jokes when we beat them, but yeah. So like I said, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, you're welcome. Please come back and talk football with us again, or sports in general. I got to say before we move along to let Steven talk for a second that I try to pick and root for a team in every conference. And in the Big 12, Oklahoma State has been the team that I've rooted for forever, for as long as I can remember. And, some folks might find that odd because, there's not a Kentucky team in the Big 12, but there is a West Virginia team in the Big 12. And I couldn't hope more that West Virginia gets beat by 100 in every sport every time. But yeah, Oklahoma State has been my team that I cheered for in the Big 12 long before West Virginia and long before they realigned. So been a kind of a closet type Cowboys fan for a long time. Steve, how about some final thoughts, man?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on what you said, like Oklahoma State. We played there a couple of years ago in basketball for the NIT, and
remember that.
Like every player on the team said it was like the craziest environment they'd ever played in. OSU has one of the best home court advantages in college basketball. Great venue, great arena, great fans. So yeah, I just kind of agree with you that they're an easy school to root for. Even though when we played them, obviously we wanted to beat them, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. But this exercise, it was just a fun kind of, kill some time, quarantine activity that we're all, just kind of itching to get out of our systems with any kind of sports. We're always spitballing, thinking about things that we could possibly do or put out there. So this was fun. It made you think. After we got past those four or five rounds, it started to get tough. You feel like you're scraping the bottom, even though there were still some good teams out there. It was a fun exercise. It really was kind of tough.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did this. Trace, how about some final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything y'all said. I really enjoyed it. I like doing stuff like this, creative, unique stuff. Especially now, we're trying to just find anything to escape indefinite boredom. Nobody, everybody's kind of getting stir crazy, having fever stuff. Anything that involves sports and drafts, and just all that kind of stuff. I'm a big nerd with that kind of stuff, and I really enjoy it. And I think all these teams are pretty compelling, or not teams, but all these conferences that ended up being picked are pretty compelling, really. I feel like if you look at these and really broke them down in depth, you would see a lot of positives on all the teams that were picked or conferences. So, I really think that this is a cool thing to do. I'm happy with how my team turned out. It was a pretty good. The conference it's kind of top heavy to an extent, but there's a lot of like kind of fringe good football programs, fringe good basketball programs. So a lot of teams that are kind of on the uprising. Maybe, who knows? Not that we'll see it play out, but it'd be cool if it would happen. And I remember thinking a few years back, I remember always getting into discussions with people on Twitter and everything about like conference realignment and stuff, and I had a kind of an idea in my head that Conference USA probably needed to focus more on the athletic, like the competitiveness side of things rather than the TV market side of things, which is what they really went for when they realigned. They were more worried about the location and the big market and everything. And I think they missed out on some of those really good Sun Belt teams like Georgia Southern and App State and teams like that. So that's definitely influenced my picks because I think they should have been in realignment in the first place. So I'm happy with it. It was really fun.
Yeah, we had I think we're all in agreement as Conference USA fans that Conference USA kind of missed the boat a little bit by taking markets over programs, because we've said many times, doesn't matter how big of a market you're in if nobody's watching that team play. So, it is what it is. But I got to say thank you again to Miles and Tanner. Follow those guys on Twitter at @TheUNT6 and follow Tanner at Tanner Spearman. I'm going to be tagging you guys when I post the divisions that you make, and DM me. And there'll probably be some social media fallout from that. So I hope you don't mind your mentions getting potentially blown to shreds, but that's the nature of the beast. We'll see how your fans like it and if they think you got it right or got it wrong, but hopefully they realize you just didn't get the cherry pick who you wanted. It was a draft, people. It was a draft. So to a certain extent, they had to pick the best of what was left. But anyway, appreciate you guys for coming on. You're welcome anytime back. So as per the norm, Steve, take us out.
Hey, go Tops.
Trace?
Go Herd.
I'll go ahead and say, again, wash your hands, 20 seconds, stay at home. We want college football in the fall. We'll see you next time. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Later.